Hello, bass family, and welcome to Everything Bass. So here's another 7-day real book jazz bass workout. And the concept, if you follow along before, is giving you specific things to like lock into a tune and take specific like exercises one day at a time. Now I am tweaking this a little bit. So this is today's feature song is Oleo, and the chart and the instructions, practice suggestions you can find on my Patreon account, which if you just go to the description of the video, click on the link, you'll be able to go there. And if you're a subscriber, you can download this just by finding the post that says the Bassist 7-Day Real Book Workout -Oleo. So I did tweak it a little bit. So at this point, we've done a handful of these, and I try to stick to the day rule. Day one, do this, and that should be something I feel is attainable if you're really focused and really want to improve your jazz playing. And day two would be another little step up, day three, and so by the end of the week, you really isolate this tune, you really have got it locked in, and you've elevated your playing. But I went deeper today. I went way deeper, in fact. So what I'm doing here is it says day one and it says day two, but some of these you're going to need more time. Now, perhaps you're a very accomplished jazz player and you're just wanting some guided practice suggestions, and that's excellent. You might be able to knock all this out one day at a time. But I want you, if you're a little more intro to jazz, you're trying to get your feet under you, I don't want you to feel any pressure. So if like day two comes up, it might take you 3 or 4 days. That's okay. That's okay. For this point, I'm just using the format of day 1 through day 7, kind of just because that's what everyone's used to at this point. But give yourself grace, be patient, and repeat a day if you have to. It's really, really the moral of the story. So let's get right into it. I don't want to bore you guys. So day one on the chart is, as you might imagine, if you've done this before, the first thing I want you doing is listening. I don't want you playing. So the first one says, listen to recordings of Oleo without your bass in your hand. Do your best to find at least 3 different recordings. Now, the reason with no bass in your hand is we are bass players. We can start noodling, then our focus shifts from listening to what we're playing, and we're not really hearing detail. I tweaked it this time by asking you to seek out different recorded versions, not by the same artist, preferably not by the same artist. And what you're listening for is what's changed. What's the approach change? Did some of them change the tempo? If your ears developed up, can you notice that they might have changed and reharmonized the chord progression? So these things, it's very cool to kind of like get your ear set and go, oh, okay, all right, this is an option. What you're really doing is you're filling up your internal musicianship. You're actually getting more resource. You're getting more inspirations, so that when you're improvising, you might be able to draw on some of these, sometimes subconsciously. That's what makes listening so important, is you might consciously, of course, go, oh, I like this record, and they slowed down the tempo and played it really like with a heavy shuffle feel. Great. All right, that's an obvious cognitive thing. But sometimes hearing just something that a sax player played on it will give you a subconscious inspiration to play a little differently. And that's great. So you don't bore yourself, you don't bore the audience, you're always getting new resources. So day one, just listen. And that should be easy. I also can say that you might want to intersperse your week of practice or going through the practice suggestions by returning to that. Like do the first couple actual playing exercises and then go back and listen. I think you'll understand, or you'll find that as you get deeper into the harmony and you've experienced the song, you'll hear it differently. And that's so important. That's awesome. I love doing that. Okay, so day one, listen. Day two, learn and memorize the melody, analyze the notes against the chords, practice slowly, and work one measure at a time. This is a much more involved melody than some of the previous ones I've given you, so you may need longer than a day. And the last part, take one chord or measure at a time, is key. Just take one measure. And if you're not great at reading notation, that's where the recordings can help. Now, the recordings are super, most of the recordings I've heard are at a very fast tempo. I did my demo at a slower tempo, because imagine if I had played it really, really quickly, you might have listened to the video and go, oh, I can't do this, it's too fast. I'm trying to tell you, it's not too fast. Slow it down till it's accessible, and then work your speed up, and you'll be the better for it. So when you're learning the melody and memorizing the melody, the first thing I always tell you, and I find it valuable, is break it down into intervals. If you can look at the chart, so there's 2 chords per measure throughout the A section until the last measure or the second ending. So he starts off pretty simple by just playing a tonic. So there's an eighth note rest and a quarter note B flat. So he's just playing a B flat, and then he goes to a G. Now the G is on the end of 2, but really actually is an anticipation that the next chord is G. So it's kind of tonic to tonic with a little anticipation. And so when you're looking at the G, you go, okay, he plays this G. The next note's a C. So he's playing a fourth. Those things help you memorize. So if you know tonic for the B flat, tonic for the G, and then a fourth of G, that makes it easier to memorize the notes. The rhythms might take you a little more, time to memorize the rhythms, but that's where playing slowly over time. And so just work on that first measure and get that down. Then add the second measure into it. Sometimes you'll see a tie from the last note of one measure into the first note of the next measure. If you're focused on that measure, go ahead and, of course, apply the tie and get used to how long to hold it. That'll be very helpful for you. So take however long you need for melody. Pause going through this. So some people ask me, well, why do you start with the melody? Why don't you start with like having me just walk with roots and fifths or something? It's just helpful to hear the melody in your head as you're playing. I've mentioned this before, but when you watch videos of some of the jazz giants playing, or maybe you're just at a nightclub and you're seeing a jazz bass player playing, you might see him playing and he's mouthing something. A lot of times what he's mouthing is the melody, because he wants to make sure what he plays fits the melody. And it's a great practice to get into. But when you learn the melody, you're learning kind of the mood of the song, which of course informs both your walking line and your solo. Lastly, solos. If you're new to soloing, one of the coolest things you can do is when it comes time to solo is quote the melody, play parts of the melody, and then when there's a long sustain or there's a section you want to break away from, just go and add an improv to that and then come back to the melody. That's good for a lot of reasons. One is the audience, I think, appreciates it. Not every time. That would be kind of weird every time. But on a certain song, if you play the melody, it kind of like refreshes everyone's memory about the tune, and then you can build off that. For you, if you're new to soloing, it gives you a starting point that I think is really helpful. Okay, so day 1, day 2, they're done. Day 3, improvise a bass line using just chord tones. Now, again, if you don't know what the chord tones are, just go through all my old videos. You'll find videos on like the major 7th arpeggio, the dominant 7th arpeggio, the minor 7th arpeggio, and you can actually build that knowledge base of what our chord tones are for certain chords. But let's suppose that you know this. So improvise a bass line using just chord tones on the A section. Use these modules. So with a song that's longer like this, it might be good to isolate a section. Now the reason why in this song I specifically say A section is because the B section on Oleo is 2 measures for 1 chord. And it's really cool at that point to branch out and play some scalar ideas and things like that. But if you do on the B section want to play chord tones, then yeah, just try not to just stay in one area, because you have 2 measures. And let's say you have 2 measures of D7. Don't just do this. Try to find ways to play that D7 longer and throughout the fingerboard more than just playing in 1 octave. All right, so man, I'm all over the place today. I feel scattergunned. So let's go back. So the first thing I want you to do is roots and fifths. So you see a B flat, you're going to play root, 5th, and then the next chord is G. You might go up to this G, play the 5th below, because remember, you have a 5th can be above or on the same fret as the root, 1 string lower. So you have that option, go this way or that way. And you can see that just roots and fifths can sound kind of cool. You can just see, kind of a neat idea, just simple, gets you kind of mapping the neck out, getting you to memorize and hear the harmony, hear the chord progression, which will make it much easier to go to the harder things. Root thirds. Now you have to decide, does the chord have a major third? Does it have a minor third? Once you do that, then it's just doing roots and thirds. Like that. Root and half step above the next root. I've done this before. Hopefully you're familiar if you've watched a couple of videos. This is really great on when you're playing a song that uses rhythm changes, 2 chords per bar in the A section, because you can just play B flat and then a chromatic into the next one, which is G, chromatic into C, chromatic into F, and it's got a cool sound. It's just very, very easy to do. It's a geometric thing. It's not a theory thing as much. You're just playing root, half step into the next root. Play that through. Get that really down. Then you're going to play. Now, this is trickier. This is extra credit. But play thirds and fifths. And I would strongly suggest turning off any metronome. Don't play with a play-along track. Look at B flat. The first chord's B flat major. Don't play the root. Play the third and the fifth. This is a very cool exercise. So you're going to play D, F, and then on the G, you're going to play B, D. And see, right there, you're starting to hear common tones and hear things that connect, notes that are common to both chords, which can later inform your practicing. This is just excellent. And do it all over the fingerboard. You might want to come up here and go, okay, well, here's my B flat, my tonic, but I'm going to play the 3, 5. On the G, I'm going to play the 3, 5. On the C, I'm going to play the 3, 5. And get used to that. And lastly, and this is heavy lifting, third, seventh. Really, this is my favorite kind of analogy, I guess, is to, or not analogy, metaphor, is to think of a boxer jumping rope. It's important. The jumping rope is really important to their conditioning. They don't take the jump rope into the boxing ring with them. When you're going through this 3-7 exercise, this is wonderful for really getting you to understand harmony. It really helps you know your fingerboard. It gets you less root dependent or tonic dependent in your both your bass lines and your soloing. But I don't expect to come see you play live and have you play a walking bass line using just thirds and sevenths. That's not the point. So, okay, and again, I said on the B sections for this day 3, use dominant 7th chord tones. So you can see this is a lot of work. This might be more than just one day, and it's worthy to do it for multiple days. It's absolutely worthy. But take your time and see if you can get your tempo up. Remember, we're not using tempo as like, ooh, look how fast I can play, but it actually strengthens your focus. And also, if you can get your tempo and keep working your tempos up, that if you're playing with a jazz band and they counter tune really fast, you won't be as intimidated. You won't get that sticker shock of, oh, this is too fast, I can't play. You'll have had some experience working your tempos up. So it's important. All right, day 4, improvise a solo using just chord tones. You notice I'm not putting any kind of rhythm stricture on here. I'm not saying, you have to play constant 8 notes. That's a great exercise, but not on this one. This one, just go through and try to play a chord tone only solo. And then next, day 5, improvise a solo using scale tones and chromatics. Now you might even want to grab the chart and write above each chord the scale you want to use. And if you need any help, just put in the descriptions below, like, hey, I'm not sure on this chord, what would you suggest? I'll give you options. I usually don't like to just say, oh, just play this, because that might give you the wrong impression. I want to say, well, you can do this, 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 or this. So don't hesitate in the description or the comment section below to ask. Okay, so you're using then scale and chromatics. What I want you to do is also hear the difference. Like, there's some amazing chord tone solos out there that sound wonderful, and they're not remedial. In fact, sometimes they're harder, but they have a certain sound, a little larger interval leaps. When you add scale tones and chromatics, then you got this other sound element, and I want you to compare and contrast. What did you like here? What did you like here? And see, like, what kind of mood did it have to go just chord tones, or what kind of mood did the solo or your walking have when you do scales? I know we're talking about soloing here, but okay. So then, day 6. This is another tricky one. You may need to hang on more than just one day. Improvise a solo over just the A section chords. So we're just doing A section, playing one chord note per chord, resolving to the nearest chord tone on the next chord. Do not use a metronome or play along with the track until you feel comfortable. So what you're doing here, since for most of the A section, it's 2 chords per bar, you're going to play half notes. And I would prefer you to grab somewhere just random on the instrument. I just grabbed here. I just put my hand down. The first chord's B flat. So I have a B flat. So I'm going to start with the tonic. So I start with the tonic. And now I'm trying to find on the G, what's the nearest chord tone? Well, I'm on a B flat. The nearest chord tone for a G dominant 7 is a B. So that's kind of cool. I just resolved. So I'm learning to, first of all, break away my dependency on roots, but also see how certain common chord progressions, the chord tones are very closely located in pitch. So I'm here. Now the next chord is C. Right there, half step higher. So check that out. This might not have been a revelation, which would inform your soloing and your improvisation, that the first chord is B flat, the tonic is B flat. The second chord is a G dominant, so you can play a B natural, which is the major third. Then the next chord's a C minor. You're just moving chromatically. So that could be really helpful in a section of your solo. So we're on the C. Next chord is an F7. Well, here's a trick. C isn't an F7, it's the fifth. So you have to go, okay, well, F, A, C, E flat. That's an F7, F, A, C, E flat. I'm on a C, so I either have to go back to the A or go up to the E flat. So now you've got this. So this might seem like you might be hesitant to like, oh, that doesn't sound valuable to me. I'm going to skip to the next day. And that's, of course, your choice. But before you do it, I would challenge you to try it and see if you can do it just in real time. Not a metronome or anything, but can you just play over the chart doing that? We're always resolving to the nearest chord tone. It takes time, but it unlocks your vision better. You see the fingerboard differently. You have new melodic concepts by doing this one note per chord resolution to the nearest chord tone. It's amazing. I find it kind of meditative, where if the day's just been crazy and I'm a little bit addled, I'll do an exercise like this because it takes your full focus and you'll have those little realizations like, oh my gosh, the first three chords I can play chromatically, with a melody. All right, so that's a tricky one. Now last, day 7. Find a play-along track and improvise over the changes, both walking and solos, for 30 minutes, trying never to repeat yourself. Now it's going to be tricky because a lot of the play-along tracks you find might just be 4 minutes, 5 minutes long. So play through it, and as soon as it stops, rewind, immediately play through it again. So there's a couple things. This might be not the 7th day because some of these play-along tracks are pretty fast. So you may want to put this off for a couple weeks. Work on all these exercises till you feel you can play along at that tempo. Now, why 30 minutes? This actually comes as an inspiration from my very first lesson I ever took on the bass with a guy named Mark Levin. And Mark was the guitar instructor at the music store I taught at before I went down to Los Angeles. And I wanted to I had no lessons. I was self-taught. And I'm going to Musicians Institute. I wanted to get a little firmer foundation. And he's a jazz player. I don't want to put him in a box, but he's really a great jazz player. He teaches all styles, but his jazz is amazing. And I knew I'd be going to a school that had a lot of jazz elements. So we started working on jazz. He showed me some concepts for walking bass line. And then we'd play for like 20 minutes nonstop. And at first my mind was like, why 20 minutes? I mean, the clock's ticking and I want to cover other things. But he had a really great point. You need to do that. You need to play longer. And improvise longer. Couple reasons. One is if you're having a challenging, maybe playing over a certain chord progression, by the repetitiveness, you'll hopefully get that down. But secondly, something I found is if you get really almost bored with what you're doing, if you're like, oh, I played that same part twice, you're going to take a chance. I think the more you play through a tune, the more repeats you go over it, you're more likely to drop your inhibitions and maybe try something new. And maybe it falls apart, no problem, man. If it's a big train wreck, stop the play along, rewind it, and try again. But what you're really looking to do is force yourself out of any muscle memories or any comfort zones. You might be so comfortable down here and get a little more nervous up here. Well, hopefully, if you just keep playing, you go, oh my gosh, I played the same walking line several times now. You might just try to go up to this B flat and play up here, and it's so important. It's so important. And it's kind of the payoff. It's like the dessert at the end of the meal. That you've done all these studies. Let's test it. And all these 7-day studies aren't one and done. I would love it for you to go back and review and go to some of the earlier videos. They're all in a playlist on my channel for jazz studies. I put anything related to jazz is on that playlist. So you can find all these. I may make other playlists that have just the 7-day studies. But try Oleo and then go back to one of the first ones, spin with that, at least a week, maybe a little longer. And then when you feel like you got a good footprint on that, go back to Oleo, see how it's changed. Did the other studies inform this one? And you'll find they will, I guarantee it. Because if you're working on a B flat major 7, it doesn't matter what song that B flat major 7's in, you're going to have understanding of that chord and how to improvise over it regardless of the tune. The tune can become secondary to the knowledge that you're building. Ooh, doggy, that's a big one, but I think it's valuable. And I want to be along on the journey with you. So please, in the comments, let me know like stumbling blocks? Did a certain day's study become too frustrating? Did you stick on day 3 for like 5-6 days and it's still not coming down? Sometimes it just takes a fresh perspective, and that's what I can be for you. And of course, as always, I want to say that if you want the chart, you want all this practice suggestions, so you don't have to watch the video to see which ones I say, just become a Patreon subscriber. It's $8 a month. If you go to my channel, which the link is in the description, click on it, become a subscribing member, you can actually download all my charts for just the $8 a month. You'll have access, and there's over 300 videos. I think we're nearing 400 videos. I slowed down a little bit. I realized I was hitting you guys with a lot of videos, but it's got to be getting close. All right, there you have it. A new 7-day bass player's real book workout, and I'm digging it, man. I love being able to teach this. It helps me, and I think that we can all kind of grow as a community. Those of us who are interested in studying jazz. All right. Hey, man, thank you so much. I really appreciate you, my brothers and sisters of bass. Please communicate with me. Let me know what more I can be doing to help you with this. And I'll see you at the next video. Cool.